What's up, y'all? It's TJ with Fake It or Make It. I hope everybody's doing great today. Today's video, I'm going to be unboxing the WEN BG4270T, which is a water-cooled sharpening system. Now, this is the extremely budget-friendly option if you can't afford a Tormek water-cooled sharpening system. Now, this is a blatant knockoff of the Tormek, and I know a lot of people have a problem with that, but in this day and age, with things being so expensive and so hard to come by, you gotta do what you gotta do to get going. And at this cost of buying this water-cooled sharpening system, I was able to also get the tool holder sharpener accessory kit that's put out by WEN that is for this, and I was also able to afford to get a few other accessories that we'll cover here shortly. Now, everything I do in my shop is not done in the professional capacity. So I feel like I'm able to get away with buying lower end stuff because I'm not doing anything production. And I really just wanted to try this out to see if I would like a water-cooled sharpening system. And there's so many different sharpening options out there, different systems. But this is one that I haven't tried yet, so I'm really curious about it, and I didn't have to dump a whole lot of money into it to just try it out. Just a few quick notes here. Again, this is the WEN BG4270T, and then I also got the WEN sharpener accessory model number 42704B. This thing retails on WEN products for $141.62. Has a 10-inch 220 grit grinding stone and an 8-inch leather stropping wheel. It's you can reverse the rotation on this thing with a flip of a switch. It's got a 115 RPM speed to the grinding wheel, the honing wheel, and the leather strop. Comes with a universal support. This thing is just like a Tormek. It doesn't have the same tolerances and the same high quality build, but we'll get into that here in a little bit. So what I want to do is I want to just go ahead and bust this thing open and show you what all comes in with the system itself, and then we'll cover the accessories and the other two things that I got to go with this system. So we'll move the camera around and take a look at it. All right, I've already taken a peek at this when it came in, and we'll go ahead and take a look at this first. This is the accessory kit, model number 42704B, and this is just going to have a short knife jig, a long knife jig, an axe jig, a scissor jig. So it has some pretty rudimentary instructions on how to use each of them. I'm going to post the links to some other YouTubers that have bought this set and have modified them. I will be using their ideas on how to modify these because, for example, this one, this short knife sharpening jig, this right here can get in the way. So I believe it's Redbeard, the knife guy. He cool thing is he's a Texan as well, and he modified this so he can get a little lower down and closer without this big knob interfering. But they're pretty neat. Got a good, decent build quality in my opinion. I know they're not Tormek, but they're not bad for the price, I have to say. And I'm really excited to learn about what each and every one of these things do. I believe this was the scissor sharpening jig. And then here is the axe sharpening jig. You lay the head of the axe right here, and then the blade faces the wheel. I almost said Tormek. The grinding wheel, and you slide it back and forth. Pretty neat. And then, of course, here's the long knife sharpening jig for larger kitchen knives. And this is the other half of the scissor sharpening jig. So None of this probably won't make sense until we start using it. Sharpening knives. So now I'm gonna go ahead and unbox the excuse me, the WEN model number BG4270T, whatever. I have not opened this yet, so you can see me cutting the tape. And if there's any surprises, you'll be surprised right along with me. Gotta say, I'm pretty excited. Cannot wait to get this thing going. Seems like pretty decent packaging so far. You can't see what I'm talking about. There you go. You can kind of see what I see right now. Got the instruction manual. We got our plastic angle guide, and it has some pretty simple instructions with pictures, so you don't so it'd be kind of hard to screw it up. It's a little flimsy, but I mean, it's not bad. It's definitely usable. We got our honing paste. I've seen some complaints that this was not labeled, so we'll have to check the instructions, see if we can figure out what kind of honing paste it is, or stropping paste it is for the stropping wheel. Here is our sharpening guide, and this is the rail that the tool holders will be, the jigs will be attaching to slide back and forth. We got all of our knobs to lock our tool holder in place. And the kit actually comes with this chisel and hand plane iron sharpening jig. This does not come in the accessory kit that comes separate, so just be aware of that. Alright, let's get this box out of the way. So, I mean, for something this inexpensive, I mean, they really did well, in my opinion, on the packaging. It has the leather stropping wheel already installed. Has a big knob for quick release. Oh my God, I'm tripping over the box. I am not a very good cinematographer. Cinematographer? Whatever. I suck at camera. It's a big wheel, man. That's where a lot of the weight is. Max speed 150. You're only 150 RPM on this wheel, but we're only turning this thing with this particular machine at 115. And everything looks really nice. It has some nice fittings for the electrical cord. Some nice rubber feet. There's the motor. Got a carrying handle. Select the direction. Here's the other side, which I guess would be the back side. Has all the pertinent information right here. It's 120 volts, 60 hertz at 1.6 amps, 115 RPM. The stropping wheel is 8 inches and the honing wheel is 10 inches, has a serial number. So you can insert your tool rest here, or spin it around so you can see it, or you can use it in this orientation. And then you adjust the height by screwing that down, and that raises or lowers this armature here. Alright, let's click this thing on. Clear. this is actually running pretty true, but if you look down the side of that knob, the knob isn't centered onto the nut, the threaded insert that goes in it, so it makes it look worse than what it is. But the wheel is actually really true. And it does have a Teflon nut on it, so you'll probably have to get you like a little wrench or something to tighten it up. Just be careful not to nick your wheel, and don't over tighten it. It's not going anywhere. Sits really nice on there. Let's crank it up and see how it rolls. It looks pretty good. This edge over here is a little higher. It's spinning really true and doesn't have any wobble to it. Looks really nice. Here, the reservoir has some little slots behind the honing wheel, and you can raise it up or down. It's got two sets of slots, so you can either put it at this level, or you can, well, you can't do that. You can't raise it to the top notch, the top setting, because the wheel is still too big. So as you use the wheel and it gets smaller, you can raise it up one more setting to stay inside the water that's in the reservoir. The other two things that I got that I mentioned earlier was the SP650 stone grater. You got a fine side or a coarse side, and you can, I'm not sure what the exact grits that it'll make it, but one's fine, one's coarse, so we'll just have to check it out. We're fine. And this is the TT50 truing tool, and this is a great way. This was a little more expensive, but this is a good way to true the stone to make sure that it's flat all the way across the surface of it, and redress it after it gets a cup or something like that, or if you nick it, you can redress it and just make this absolutely dead flat once again. And that's going to be one of the first things we do after we get the stone loaded with water. So I just got some regular water, and I'm going to fill this thing up. See what happens if I start it and then start filling it up. They say this thing drinks up a lot of water. You can see I'm filling it up and it's drinking it up as fast as I can pour it in. There's a nick right here, and we're actually going to have to true or remove everything down on this surface to the lowest part of this. We've got to be able to get to a good flat surface, and I just got a little too carried away and excited, and I forgot to inspect the wheel a lot closer. Seems to be that's the only issue that I have to deal with before we get to start playing with this thing. This was a method that I've seen a few other people use to check the square. I'm sure it's not extremely scientific, but I'm taking this little old machinist square. I trust it, so I'm gonna put it and lay it flat on top of the stone. And I haven't dressed the stone yet, but I just want to get an idea of if my tool rest is square with the wheel itself, and from the way I see it, that's closer than I was expecting by a long shot. It seems really good to me so far. Let's see. I'm gonna put this square on the top here of the wheel, and I'm going to reference my other square on the tool rest. Make sure that you're holding it nice and flat against the stone, and that's not bad. I will go ahead and say that truing this honing wheel with this Tormek truing tool, even though I had this tool and used it, it was still difficult, as this wheel was actually pretty yoked and out of round. And there was a little bit of a learning curve trying to figure out how to make the truing tool work and not take too big of a cut, and just getting it set up and trying to minimize the chatter that was being created. And if you tried, you would hit the high spot of the out of round portion on the wheel, and it would stop the motor. It would just stop in its tracks. So then you'd have to kill it and then, you know, raise it up a little bit, and then just try and, it just took a while to knock the high spot off a little bit at a time. And the flatter I got it, the better and the easier it was to use the truing tool. But that's just something else to keep in mind. This product is mostly for somebody who has more time than money, and that's usually the case with me. So I'm able to tinker with this thing. Most people, they wouldn't even want to fiddle with it, but I enjoy doing stuff like this. And so just keep that in mind whenever you're thinking about purchasing one of these. Is they do take a little bit of work to get them where they need to be. You can't just unbox this thing and start sharpening with it. You do have to set it up and do a little bit of tuning on it to get it going. So now that I've got this flat, I'm gonna go ahead and use the Tormek SP650 stone grater, and probably gonna use the coarse side and just make sure that I've got a nice even and continuous even grind all the way across the stone itself. Has a really aggressive coarse side, and then it has, looks like a little cheap dollar store Harbor Freight sharpening stone, but this was actually more expensive than anything at Harbor Freight. So it was like 30 bucks on Amazon. So I'll go ahead, and I heard this part makes a little bit of a mess, so you know what, I'm gonna get this out of my way. And I've seen most people do it like this. I'm gonna try and approach it at an angle. And I wonder, it seems natural that I should want the wheel to turn towards me. Probably gonna get soaking wet. Yeah, that made a pretty substantial difference. If you do it this way, you're going to get water on the machine. That's not a huge deal. You can always wipe it off and clean it when you're done. Kind of going in at an angle. I think that ought to be pretty consistent. That ought to be it right there. And the more you use something like this, the more you'll understand how it works. And I really don't know what the hell I'm doing. I'm just going with it. So every day is an adventure for me. So one of the other problems that I've seen in other videos, and I'm seeing it for myself, I have some old, inexpensive, big box store chisels, and they're typically shorter and stubbier. So you can't reference off the back side of the, you got 2 points of reference to hold square on this chisel and plane iron jig. So you have to go past the shoulders of the chisel, and that leaves you with no weight. You're only referencing one point up here at the front to hold square and perpendicular to the wheel. So what I did was, after I got my angle that I wanted to like 25 degrees using the guide, the little angle finder, I just took my square and put it on the wheel and made sure that I wasn't kicked one way or the other. Now that's not an absolutely super accurate way to do it, but it's what I can figure out at the moment, and I'm sure I'll come up with better ways to do this. So let's see what we can do with it. See, I just came off of it. I'm getting a pretty even grind so far, so that's pretty cool. Okay, it's taken me quite a while to get to this point. The bevel is a little off right here, but I think that's because of the factory grind. I can take one of my squares and hold it like this, and it's pretty dead on. Closer than anything I can do with my capabilities, and I'm sure I'm going to learn a lot more. This is just one of my grandfather's old chisels. The thing that took me so long was I had to go back and flatten the back of this thing again and polish it. It could still stand to go a little more polished, but before I flattened this thing on a whetstone before I had diamond plates, and so it wasn't perfectly flat. So I went back and flattened it. Took the time, flattened it, and brought it up to a 1500 down here toward the end. And it's pretty sharp. I haven't stropped it yet. It's just a sheet of regular notebook paper. It's pretty. I've never sharpened anything that good before. So. It's pretty sharp. It's probably the sharpest I've ever gotten a chisel. But I know it's going to get a little better, so I'm going to go ahead and load up the stropping wheel and go ahead and strop it and see what that does. They say that it's a good idea to put a little bit of oil on your leather stropping wheel. So just kind of rub it in with my finger. Leather's really dry, so it's soaking up a lot of oil. This is just 3-in-1 oil. Trying to get this thing not soaking wet, but just nice and lubricated. And we'll get some of this mystery polishing paste, stropping paste, rouge, whatever. I don't know what color it's going to be. White. Put a little bit on my finger. Got a pretty nice even coat all the way around the wheel. And I'm just going to freehand this. Got blood all over my chisel.
polishing it a little bit. Right down at the very end. This, being this is a little bit smaller, it seems like the grind is a little different, but I think it'll be all right. I don't like turning it that way. That doesn't feel right. Even though that's the way I flattened it, so I'm actually stropping it perpendicular to the way that I flattened it on the stone. But even then, it has really brought the back up to a really nice polish. And I have to remember to be really careful with this thing because now it is extremely sharp. Let's see what we can do with it now. All right. I may be mistaken, but I think that'll cut some wood. All right. That's pretty damn sharp. I just got through sharpening my old knife I just retired. I do need to make the modification because on this tool because the knob is too big and it interferes whenever you go to do. You're okay doing this side with the knob up, but whenever you go to flip over, the knob hits the honing wheel. But it felt kind of awkward to me, so I free-handed it, and that seemed a little more natural. And after a few passes back and forth and stropping it a few times, clean that off. Show you. It's pretty sharp. And I even shaved a big patch of hair. So that definitely is a lot faster to me than sharpening it on a stone. Especially with this knife, because this particular stainless steel that this is made of is kind of a pain in the ass to sharpen. So this made it a lot faster and a lot easier. It will take some getting used to doing these more drop point type knives, because making that swoop motion to get the tip properly, it's going to definitely take some practice. But this thing is way sharper than it has ever been with my pathetic sharpening skills, and I'm not even that good at sharpening, and this has really made a huge difference in just a short amount of time I've been working with it today. So far, I'm really pleased with this. So now I have the planer blade out of my old Stanley planer, hand planer, and we'll see. I had it pretty sharp by hand. It took a long time to get it there, so I'm gonna change the bevel angle a little bit. It was at 20 degrees. I think I'm gonna try and get it around 27, so I can do hardwood and softwood, maybe kind of meet in the middle and try and see how that works out. So make sure that I'm at the right angle. Now, one thing I'm gonna have to figure out is as the wheel gets smaller, this thing gets less accurate. So I need to do some homework and figure out a good way that I can replicate the same bevel angle each time, no matter how big or small the wheel is. So let's see what we can do with this. I'm not putting any pressure on it. Alright. Looking pretty good. And I keep forgetting to keep my fingers out of this wheel. I need to train myself to keep my hands up here. The only thing I may do is this right here and keep even pressure across the blade. This thing is ancient. It's from the 20s or 30s, so it does have a little bit of pitting on the back, but it doesn't affect it negatively. And I've got my bevel on my plane iron, and it's kind of dingy looking because I just kind of quickly, years ago when I found it, I just put some bluing on it, and I'm gonna redo this particular, I'm gonna redo all my hand planes and really get them looking nice. But went ahead and stropped it both sides after hitting it on the back with the diamond plate. So really sharp. I'm sure there's professional sharpeners out there and stuff like that that can get way sharper than I can, but I got to tell you, I'm really impressed. I'm really excited because I've never been that great at sharpening blades. I've just been good enough just to get by, but I feel like with a little more practice and using this thing, that all my tools, I'll start having an easier time with woodworking and keeping all my blades sharp. And I'm just, man, this is really cool. I'm digging my purchase. The last thing I done was took some of these old junky, I mean, they're not bad scissors, they're like a name brand, but they're just old as dirt, and sharpen them. They got a tip broke off of them right there, but you know what? They cut. So I guess the main takeaway from this is that if you do have the money and you can afford the Tormek and all the other cool features to go with it, then yeah, go ahead and buy the Tormek. But if you don't have the money and you got time on your hands and you got a little bit of know-how and you're kind of crafty, you know, this is a really good option, but you do have to fiddle with it. There are a few things that you have to do to get it trued up and running properly. You can't just pull this thing out of the box and just start sharpening with it, and I'm not even sure you can do that with the Tormek. You can put Tormek wheels on here. You can use some Tormek parts that are interchangeable with this system. This thing, I'm definitely going to have to do a little bit of modifications to it to get it the way I want it. I'm going to probably have to do the same thing on the other one. The chisel and plane jig work pretty well, especially for the plane iron, because the plane iron is really long and I can reference both points on this side to keep it square. I have cheaper box store chisels and they're kind of short and stubby, so the blade of the chisel is not very long, so you can't really reference both points and you have to use your square to square it up. But all in all, I really like this system. A lot of people, you know, you pay for what you get, you know, so I feel like I got a pretty good deal with this. I'm okay with it, and in the end, that's what matters. Are you okay with the purchase? You know, do you feel good about what you bought? But there's a lot of good videos on this particular model, and I'll post some links down in the description, and you can check those out. Right here in the corner is a card to Mr. PG. It's PG. That's the name of the channel. And he's an awesome dude. I mentioned him earlier, so go check him out. He has got all kinds of videos on how to sharpen different blades and how he goes about doing some of these serrations on these crazier blades and kitchen knives and stuff like that. So anyway, I hope y'all enjoyed this video. Y'all stay safe and y'all come back now.
Another one bites the dust. Another one bites the dust. Another one bites.